Have you ever felt like motherhood has swallowed you whole? Like your teenager self, your childhood self, just your human self is no longer part of what you experience, what you think about, any part of your this like pressure to do it all, to be mom. And if you have felt that way, welcome to the Chill Like a Mother podcast. I am Kayla Huzar, and I am here with Allie, who her Instagram handle is
Millennial mom therapist.
Millennial Mom Therapist. I love Allie's nostalgic content. She's always sharing like memes and like relating it back to childhood. And it just has this like feel good feeling. And to celebrate the occasion today, I'm wearing my Disney shirt with Lion King on it, with my friend's mug. These are all millennial mom things that we can relate to. So Allie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I love that. There's something fun about myself that will be very timely for December 2025. You know how everyone's doing their Spotify Wrapped and that whole thing. So I pretty much only listen to podcasts through Spotify. So I do like Apple Music for like my listening. And so my Apple Music Wrapped was K-pop Demon Hunters at the top. Lion King was somewhere in there. Vivo, if you've never seen the movie Vivo, that's a great one, great soundtrack. And I think How to Train Your Dragon is a good one, so it's just like, yep, that's my life right now. Which I was honestly very surprised because I feel like I try to do a good job of listening to my own music on my own time. So I was a little kind of like perturbed, like, what? Like all the minutes went to my daughter. I do like K-pop Demon Hunter soundtrack though, so I will say that.
Yes.
But yeah, my intro about me. So that's my music wrapped about me. I'm a therapist. I'm in the States in Maryland, USA. And I work with a lot of millennial moms who are, navigating the unique struggles of our generation in terms of like modern parenting, feeling pressures to do it all and be it all for everyone, whether that's being a working parent, a work from home parent, a stay at home mom, part time, all kind of combination of different roles that moms find themselves in and still feeling like it's not enough, still feeling like that something is either missing or that they're not doing good enough. Like I work with a lot of moms who are trying to break generational patterns and cycles that they found themselves in, within their family dynamics. And it's really hard work, to break free from that and unlearn things. On my Instagram page, I find a lot of comfort in, recapping maybe some more positive moments like nostalgia from our childhood. But I also feel like like you said, I try to blend in like what we're really dealing with in terms of the overwhelm and burnout and all of that. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But I'm in private practice, so I see clients through my practice that I opened about 2 years ago, and I love it. It's great. So, and I'm a mom of one. So yes.
Amazing. Thank you for that. So tell me, what is the $1 million question that you can predict almost any client will ask you?
Yeah, yeah. I think I even did a post on this and I'm like, this is it. Like this
Yeah.
is what I get almost every week. Even from like my usual client, my regulars, they'll ask me again, like, can you like do you have another answer? There's something that I'm missing here, or something else I can do. And I feel like that question is like, how do I not screw up my kids? Or how do I not mess up in this parenting role that I found myself in? Because I think so many of us like have longed to be mothers for a long time. We saw our own mothers and whatever that story, that narrative on our minds about how our mothers were influences how we want to be or not be as a mom. So I think a lot of that is that question that I get from clients about tell me what to do so that I don't screw up my kids or am I doing this right? Like air quotes, like I want to do it right. I want to get it right. So yeah, I think that's such a hard question to answer. And of course, I explore it with each client in terms of their unique circumstances. I don't have like a catch all answer, but yeah, I just want to validate that it's hard when you have this desire to want to do so well. And I think there's some perfectionism in that question too, where it's like, I want to get it right. I don't want to screw up my kids. So the only alternative is doing it perfectly, which is not true. Just because you're not perfect doesn't mean that you're failing. But yeah, I think it's so hard to navigate that feeling.
Yes. Yes. And do you feel like at least some of the time that comes back to like feeling like a whole person, like bringing in the pieces of you into parenting and working through the tension of like this is how I'd really like to show up. This is how like naturally I might show up in the world, but this is how I'm trying to show up. And then
Mhm.
that trying is like effort, it's exhaustion, it's burnout. It's like and so there's this tension between I'd really like to be a fun, silly, playful mom, but then how do I discipline? Or I want to dance in my kitchen, but then maybe I've got like a neurospicy household. And when I bring the fun, then the fun like gets out of control. And then I
Mhm.
don't know how to then be fun or be spontaneous or listen to my music in this of this is how I should show up, or this is how I've been taught to be a parent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you nailed it in terms of, like, reconciling those 2 parts that show up in parenting, where it's, like, the ideal self or the self that you maybe always expected yourself to be, and I think, this also goes back to so much of our upbringings as a generation. Obviously, I'm generalizing here, but, like, we were kinda told, like, "If you follow these steps, if you do this right path, then you'll have it all," or "You've made it," or you'll achieve success, or just be happy. I know that was a message that I got, and I think a lot of my friends got in our area. I grew up outside of the DC area, and so there was a lot of like high level, high achieving. A lot of our parents worked in the government, or in the White House, in the Pentagon, like very like high stress, high level jobs. And I think a lot of our parents instilled in us like, well, we want you to be happy. We don't want you to take this route that we feel like we had to take as boomers, and we want you to do something different and just do what you want to do, find your passion. And I love that. I love that that was encouraged for me, and that's why I became a psych major. But then I quickly learned that I'm like, oh, graduating in 2009 when there's an economic recession, isn't exactly great timing. And so obviously life took me a lot of different curves, and I ended up being a therapist, which I love. But I know that not all of my peers in this generation, have found that. So I think to your point, there's the career side of things that we maybe were told one thing, we found we had to like adapt and achieve other things. But then also in parenting, we maybe saw that our parents weren't necessarily like playing with us on the floor, or we were very like, go outside, go play, go somewhere, come back at dark. We were more independent or latchkey kids or that kind of thing. And so now we're like, well, we want to be more involved as parents, but maybe we're working, maybe we're having to navigate other, to dos, in life. And it's just not possible without some sense of burnout, overwhelm, overstimulation. You have kids who maybe have different needs. So, yeah, I think it's a really hard thing to kind of accept that those two things can be true. You can have this desire to want to be this whole, well rounded person that has many different identities and parts, and they all kind of marry together. But there's also going to be moments when you feel like, all right, I'm on the edge here. Like, this is really hard. And what do I do in those moments? How do we cope in those moments when I am at my limit? I maybe yelled, like kind of like, working through and repairing even within ourselves that those moments are going to come up. And how do I cope with that?
Yeah. Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
into that. What is your what's like your top 3? And I know we're in unsolicited advice territory, but
Right.
if like your top 3 ways to cope with that, what are they? If you just like if you could just talk, what would you say just to somebody if they were looking for an answer?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at least for me and my clients that I work with, or like the people that I feel like are within my Instagram community, seems to really connect with this. But like, think about what you did as a teenager. Like, I also think like childhood as well, like younger child, but I really love like the image of like an angsty teenager that's just like this is so unfair, because I think that's a lot of like motherhood. It just feels so
So unfair.
unfair. Like
Yeah.
it feels like this is like unjust. I think like when I think of rage and like that anger that comes out, like yeah, you might be annoyed and angry with your kids because they're like mom, 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 they're hanging on your leg. We can all agree that that's overstimulating and that's annoying. But I think that would be so much easier in a way to manage if you weren't also dealing with the mental load. I got to send this email. I got to think about dinner. I got to, like all the other things that are piling on. So, yeah, it feels like unfair. Like, why do I have to be the one? So I think of this like angsty teen and like, what did I do then? Or I might encourage a client to think, what did you do then? And so I used to like to go for a drive, whether that meant like going, in the car with a friend or, just getting outside, like getting some fresh air, rolling the windows down, just even that movement of moving into a different environment. So just like driving around in a 5 mile radius felt like enough to feel like, all right, things feel like they've changed a little bit. Now, what's hard with that is if you have kids, that means that maybe they're coming along for the ride, but sometimes that can just be enough to even help them, like just kind of like move through whatever everyone's feeling. Or if you have support, just be like, hey, you got to take the kids for a minute. I got to step out. If that's not possible, then I really love the idea of like music. So I always really connected to music growing up, whether that was listening to it or playing it myself, like an instrument. So I think that can be just a really healthy way to move through all the complex emotions. Yeah, having time where you can listen to your own music or you can listen to something that isn't K-pop demon, unless that's your jam, unless that's
You
your
really
thing.
like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. Which it is good. I do like it. And if you haven't seen the movie, it sends a really good message about like shame and like, kind of accepting those parts. So I feel like it also like coincides with like what we're feeling too. I love food too. So even like food can be regulating. And I know that that's probably a controversial topic. Just having like a snack, just like taking care of yourself, because I feel like that was something where after school, I had no problem like plopping myself down, having a snack. Like, I'm going to kick up my feet. There was no shame in that. And I feel like now, like as moms, like we call ourselves lazy or like you have the productive voice in your ear where it's like, you really should be doing the laundry or you really should be doing that. It's really hard to just rest. So I think that's like another thing where even if you just lay on the floor for 30 seconds, like just plop yourself down and just like exist without purpose.
Yes.
So, because I feel like that's, as teens, as kids, we just kind of were very intuitive with that stuff. We just let it be. We just, if we wanted to run around and be wacky, we did. And so I think,
And we were alone a
yeah.
lot. So there was
Right,
also
right.
no, like, feedback from the parents. I was actually thinking about
Yes.
this the other day. My oldest is 10, and I have built this life to be intentionally home more than, say, my mom was as a single parent. And so they are never alone, which is like,
Yeah.
it feeds a bit of that, like, good mom in me, right? They're never alone. They never have to let themselves in the house. Like,
Mm.
we as 2 parents have, like, built this life where at least one of us is home for them before or after school. And, like, if I think about myself between 10 and 12 even, it was like that was my favorite time of day. I got to come home and I didn't have siblings also. So it was like I was alone
Yeah.
and I loved it. It felt safe for me to be alone. And I would come home and I would eat like really garbage food, like there
Yeah.
was nobody standing at the kitchen being like, "Are you gonna have a carrot because you didn't eat any of your lunch?"
Yeah.
It was like, no, I would have like cookies and milk and I would sit myself in front of the TV. I would either put a movie on because like legit channel changing, no
Right,
Netflix.
right. Yeah.
If there was nothing on or, the time changed your favorite show to being at a different time. It was like, I would just sit there until 10 after 5 when my mom walked through the door. And I've been wrestling with this as a parent right now because it's like, I would feel like a bad parent if I wasn't home.
Hmm.
And yet,
Yeah.
that felt really safe for me
As a kid.
as
Yeah.
a kid, as mirroring that
Yeah.
to my child's age
Right.
right now. And it's so complicated because I was even saying this to a client the other day. The argument that we have with our children about TV is so much different now than it was then. Like if Rugrats, it for me, it was like if
Yeah,
Rugrats
yeah.
was not on at 4:30, there was no other option. I couldn't find it anywhere else. I couldn't fight with my mom about opening YouTube, finding it on her phone.
Yeah.
Like There literally was no other option. And now it's endless, right? Like, if I tried hard enough, I could probably find the exact episode that my child is trying to watch after school, right? And so it becomes this thing for parents, particularly moms, to manage when it comes to that leisure time, right? Like, what are you watching? How long are you watching it? Because it's endless. There is no commercials to remind them to go to the bathroom or get a snack or just like take a break from that. They could literally sit there for an hour and a half and it would just keep going. It would just keep going and going and going. And so now we have this responsibility to enforce this boundary that is actually new. Like when I
Yeah.
think about having to enforce this, I'm having to sit my kids down and say, look, you could watch Spidey for literally 3 days straight and not go to sleep and not eat and not go to the bathroom. Like you have to
Yeah.
turn it off, or I have to turn it off. Where 30 years ago, the show was just over and the news started at 6 o'clock and you
Yeah.
didn't want to watch it. So you
No.
walked away.
Yeah. Yeah. They were built-in boundaries with that.
Yes.
So, yeah, I completely agree. Like I'm nodding my head like crazy. It's so hard, and I think there's so many conversations like when we go back to like what we should do as parents. So using your example is perfect because I feel like it mirrors so many households across the world where it's like there's a parent home to supervise the kids, even if the kids technically can be left alone or be more independent with their play or their after school time. But there's this pressure on moms, like you said. I mean, dads too, but I think moms, it's a little bit more of this intensive mothering is the term, where we've moved past helicopter parenting. We've moved into like intensive parenting, where it's not like we're just watching them outside at the playground and we're making sure they don't fall. It's like we're dealing with the mental and emotional load with that too, with screens, with their development, with academics, with peer relationships. I mean, we're in it all, like, and in a way that our parents weren't. And I think it's just like you said, it's just a completely different world that we're living right now, where there's access to more information, there's access to more videos, there's more unregulated videos.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, for Rugrats to be on TV, it went through a screening process to make sure it was okay to be on TV.
Yes.
That's not YouTube at all, you know?
No.
So, I mean, at
That's
least we
not
can
even
count
Netflix.
on, right? That's not even Netflix. At least we can count on PBS Kids. That's like a staple in our household. But even with that, like, yeah, there's still times where, it'd be nice just to have her turn on Netflix and she can use the remote and stuff, shuffle through the shows. But I mean, even that feels a little risky. So, yeah, when we think about risk, as moms, we're constantly assessing like the cost, the risk benefit, whatever. So yeah, it's just never ending,
It's
the
never
mental and
ending.
emotional. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it's never ending. And that's like metaphorically speaking for all of it, right? Motherhood is
Yeah.
never ending. Your
Hmm.
effort never reaches an endpoint. The laundry is never done unless you want to move through life being naked. As soon as your laundry is done, you will have clothes in the basket in 8 hours.
Right. Right.
So it is never ending. YouTube will go on forever. Netflix will go on forever. Spotify, my son's really into podcasts, right? And so now it's like the algorithm is like getting him to like watch the shorts on Spotify
Mm.
instead of just the podcast. And it's like feeding him this, it's not inappropriate, but it's not vetted. Right?
Yeah.
We have vetted these Wondery or National Geographic podcasts for kids, but now it's feeding him these other ones. And he gets into these positions where he's like, Mom, I didn't mean to click on it. Right? Because I can see it in the history. And I'll be like, oh, that's an interesting thing. You only watched part of it. Or he got into these like ASMR videos. And it was like, he was like, I didn't know what to do. He kind of freaked out and he was really stressed. He thought he was going to be in trouble. And I was, no, it's really hard to like, even I have his like
Yeah.
MP3 player. And I'm like, I don't even know how to make this go away as an adult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so stressful because I am, as the parent, I'm questioning, like, did you click on it? Are you curious about that? If you're curious about that, I want to talk about it. Like,
Right.
friends come to school with different language and he says it at home. And I'm like, that's an interesting word. Do you know what that word means? Because that's not
Yeah.
what that word means.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really challenging to navigate that when I could just come home and go on MSN, and that was like the riskiest thing. My mom was
Mhm.
like, "Don't befriend anybody that's not your friend." And I was like, "Yeah, 10-4, 100%."
Yeah.
Like, I get
Yeah.
that. Where this is like, it's like open
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much to deal with, and I thought goes back to like the original, $1,000,000 question. How do I not screw up my kids? And this just feels like one of the hundreds of ways that I could screw up as a parent is they're watching the wrong type of show, or they end up on the wrong side of YouTube, or they're influenced by the algorithm or the manosphere, everything like that. And it feels so the stakes are so high because it's so influential. Like it's such these little like bite size, eye catching, polarizing statements that whether or not are true, we don't know. But for young minds, yeah, it can really take over. So it just feels like another thing that we have to supervise and like you said, be responsible for as parents. That leisure time for me, what, like, what is that? Like, I don't have time for leisure time when I'm like researching YouTube channels, or who is the, whatever it is. So back to the original thing about like, if a mom asks me how do I not screw up my kids, but then also like how do I feel like a whole person with my identity, it feels like almost the barriers to that are just so high, so many, to prevent a mom from actually feeling whole and like she has different parts and identities of herself that she can actually nurture and develop. It's hard, but it's so important. And I think that that's where, having good support, having boundaries in place, like, obviously when you're kind of in the trenches with young kids, it may look different than when you have an older kid that's maybe like 10 or older. I'm even finding it now as our daughter's 5. We're coming out of the fog more and more each day. But it's like, oh my gosh, like is this ever going to feel better?
Yes, yes, and that I think is the, like, $2,000,000 question is
Hmm.
will I ever feel better? Will it ever feel different?
Yeah.
And I really appreciated what you said about, I'm gonna call it kind of like bringing it back to basics, bringing it back to the things that you intuitively, spontaneously knew would help regulate or help you cope, right? Going for a drive, that speaks to my heart. Listening to music is like I have never played kids music in my car. It is always my music because became a parent 10 years ago, and that wasn't
Yeah.
as easy as it is now with today's
Yeah. That's the
technology. It
way to
was
do it. Yeah.
literally the radio, and that using food in a way that feels good and right and serving you in that moment. I always go back to this quote from Brene Brown, and whether you like her or not or whatever, the quote is that there's a difference between sitting down and eating your cake at the kitchen table than having it on a plate and you're still standing in the refrigerator, like
Mm,
just shoveling it in. And I think there's a big difference between I'm going to choose to eat this cake and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to intentionally eat it, regardless of what relationship I have with food, or standing in the fridge, just like shoveling it in because that feels like the only option, or it feels shameful to be eating it, or you should be eating something else. So you're eating it quickly so that nobody sees you. And my kids love sweets, like as much as I tried to not, they do. And that's
my
just
daughter's the
real.
same. Yeah.
It's realistic, right?
Yeah.
And so, their advent calendars this year are chocolates. And they're like, hey, can we have this before school? And I'm like, yeah, because you know what? If I was 10, 12, 15, if I even allowed myself to do it, the first thing I would want to eat in the morning is a piece of chocolate too. If that was the season and that was the celebration and that was what was normal, I would want that too. And so the taking it back to basics of how do I cope with this life as a mom? How do I feel like a person? How do I fit that into the margins of my
Yeah.
responsibilities, my roles, my geographical location in the world, my non-negotiables? Is can you do something? This is my question for everybody listening. Can you do something in the margins of what is expected of you that makes you just feel a little bit like you? Today, it's a Lion King shirt for me, and tomorrow it might be something else. It might be joining my children in a chocolate for breakfast and
Yeah.
taking it back to those basics of what makes you feel alive and good, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's a drive, even if it's one song. That can make a huge difference over and above all of the other really cool coping strategies that your therapist or coach might be teaching you. Those things are, I'm glad you so mentioned it because those are the things I go back to all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just so real and it's also just something that you need. Like when you start thinking of those things as like those can be my anchors throughout the day.
Yeah.
Those can be my things that make me kind of come back to me. So, when you think about the bedtime struggles, thank God it's so much better now. But, I would come out of the room and feel like I just went to war, like trying to get this toddler to bed. I've seen some content on this on Instagram where it's like the lean, where you lean on the counter and you just kind of like scroll or you eat a snack. But I'm glad that it's evolved from that, where now I'll sit down on the couch. I might have a bowl of cereal. I like something crunchy in the evening, something like that where, yeah, I might still scroll my phone a little bit, but I feel like it's a little more intentional. It's a little bit with more care and nurturance rather than so exhausted. I'm just going to like lean over here. I think there's definitely more compassion.
Allie, thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. I'm going to have all of Allie's links in the show notes and in the blog. You can connect with her. Her content always is like a breath of fresh air for me. There has never
Thank
been
you.
something that you have posted that I haven't been like, that either warms my heart or it gives me perspective or permission.
Hmm.
And it is always just like a nice place to land in amongst the noise of
Thank
social
you for
media and
saying
mom
that. I
content.
appreciate that. Social media, it's the wild wild west sometimes.
Thank you so much, Allie. And thanks for tuning into the Chill Like a Mother podcast. If this struck a chord for you or it made you feel like, yes, finally somebody who hears me or sees me or, oh, that's exactly my dialogue inside of my head, I would love it if you could leave a review or positive comment or share it with a friend if that feels too public or vulnerable for you. Share it with somebody who needs it. That's the way that we get podcasts into the ears of moms who need it, is by you going ahead and sharing it or saying how much it impacted you in some way, shape, or form. So thank you all for being here. And just for funsies, if you would like to message me your favorite old school movie. Doesn't have to be Disney necessarily, but if you want to engage in a conversation with me or Allie, let's message each other our favorite old school nostalgic movie that we loved when we were younger or teenagers.
I love that.
Thank you so much, Allie.
Thank you.